Hello, everyone. It's Miriam Ortiz y Pino here with More Than Organized. And today we're going to be talking about how to keep your things beautifully. You know, how to pick out the right containers to get the job done, and all the considerations that go along with the containers, which is what everyone usually starts with. But let's just take a second to review that you can get lots of free resources over at MoreThanOrganized.net. There is stuff on paperwork and decluttering and all kinds of good stuff over there. So check it out. And then we're gonna, the all about making the organizing beautiful is what we're all about today. So there's often people jump the gun on containers. They want the stuff to be pretty first, and then they go to put stuff away and it doesn't fit, or it's not quite right, or it's really hard to use or work with. So I want to just talk about a bunch of ways to pick the best versions of your containers. And uh-oh, I've got a technical difficulty. Hang on one sec. All right, there we go. I didn't hit the button all the way, apparently. But let's just review what we've been talking about with this Steps to Order series. There's been a bunch of steps you may not have considered. And often I find people start with this step, and it's really the last step. So let's review. We went over why it's important to know why you're getting organized so that you can stay motivated and connect it to your desired outcome. We came up with a plan of what you're going to do in your various spaces, and then how you're going to start and work around each of those spaces with and the supplies you might need, like trash bags and areas for moving the stuff around to the appropriate place it's going to go. Then we talked about sorting, how to sort. There's a bunch of different ways to sort, and it needs to be based on how you think and how you're going to use your items. So we talked about that. We talked about how to eliminate items, the purging portion, if you will, and some great questions for deciding what can go. And then we talked about what to keep and how to make those decisions as well, because making decisions from both ends gets you a better result in the middle. If you pick your favorites and your least favorites and go from there. Then we talked about how to systematize the things so that you can create a rotating system for your life. So as you use things up, you're replenishing the things that you do still use and want to use. You have a way of letting go of old hobbies and businesses and ideas and bringing new ones in. And so everything is a rotating system, and we talked about how to make it as easy as possible, whether it's just you or for your whole family or for your workplace. There's a way to think about the rotation of items in our lives. And now we get to talk about how to actually pick the containers and what you're going to use as the criteria for picking that stuff. So the number one thing I want to remind everybody here is that to have order, to live an organized life, you don't actually need any containers whatsoever. Order is actually a mindset of knowing the workflow of how you use things and where you keep things and putting them away when you're done with a work session or a play session. It's not about the fact that you own a bunch of shoe boxes or you own a bunch of drawer dividers. It is about how you use those things to enhance and make your life easier on a day-to-day basis. So also, think about the fact that containers themselves take up a certain amount of space. There is a thickness to folders. There is a thickness and space when you need to open a lid to something. It takes up room. And so just keep that in mind. I find that that's the part where many of my clients have gone a little bit wrong, is they buy a fancy container because it's super pretty, but it doesn't work in the space because they forgot they need to accommodate the lid or your hands around the container to pull it off the shelf, that kind of thing. So that's one of the considerations. But always create the order first and then go back in and get containers just for the items that are falling over, are slippery and sliding around, or that are just really little and so can get mixed up easily. So again, we're just going to think about function is way more important. Another, oh, I apologize for the dings. I didn't turn off my notifications. Oops. All right, so back here we've got the functions. Function is more important. So there's a lot of things that are very specific containers. Like I want to use DVD storage as an example. There's often like slotted, it happens for CD storage as well. There's slotted shelving units or bins that have a slot to kind of hold each video upright, which is great, except when you buy something that's not in traditional packaging. And you all know Disney oversizes their products so that you can't store them away and you need to leave them out, so you're more likely to use them frequently. And then there's other things that just come in a smaller thing, or it's a deluxe edition boxed set, and it doesn't work if there's too many slots. So I want you to get in the habit of thinking the simplest version of a container wherever you can. So for instance, I'm going to just show you a few containers around the room and see why they were picked, and that they are also lovely for my style, because function is more important than style, but we also want to pick what matches our style. So just think about it that way. And I'm going to show you where some of the things I have in containers don't actually need to be in containers, but they're in containers for a specific reason, or vice versa. Things are not in a container, but they because they don't need to be at all, and it's not necessary. But because I was just talking about DVDs, I just wanted to show you the difference. Imagine a DVD shelf with all the slots and how much room it takes and the stacking containers and things. Well, this little bin actually holds a lot. It holds like 300 CDs. And this is all my software and or backups of some video and photo stuff about my business, my branding stuff. That's what's in this bin. But you can see it accommodates a few funky sizes. Let's see if I can get a better view of it. There's some funky sizes. I haven't cleaned it out in a while, but by taking the outer packaging off of most things and putting some sort of a small white CD envelope, you can store hundreds in the space that it would ordinarily only hold about 40. So think about that. This is a bin, and it can be used for these CDs and things. It can also be used to hold a whole lot of other stuff. So that's kind of why I like that bin. If I get rid of all those CDs because I no longer have a drive and I consolidate that, then that bin can be used for something else. Like I have a smaller version of it, but I keep cords and an old microphone and as a backup, and adapters for when I do presentations and things. They get to live in one of these little crates too. And that's only because they get a little bit tangled, those cords and things. I have a box that was a stationery set. I loved this box and the stationery set. I long ago used up all the stationery in it, but it's where I keep my current cards. I bought a different box of cards. I filled this, and it lives right here next to my desk where I can reach it easily. So the container helps me pull it out to pick a card, and then I put it right back. So I'm not moving 100 things to get at the thing I need. Does that make sense? All right. I just want to show you one more example of kind of a more traditional bin. I have a shoebox. In here is the stuff I take when I do an event of some sort. And you might notice there's a polka dot cosmetic bag in there. That's holding my pens. And that's because I don't actually take the shoebox when I go to an event. Occasionally, but usually not. Usually these things just come out and go into my tote bag that I'm taking. But this bin allows me to see right where it is, so I remember. And the pens are in a secondary container because they slide around in this box, and I need to grab an assortment when I go, and this can go in my tote bag as well. It's just, it allows me to fit more into a smaller space when I put it into the tote bag. But I like to have it visible. in a couple different ways so that I know what's in there when it's on my shelf, and I can look quickly without unpacking it to see if I need to replenish anything before I go. Okay, so there's some of that. But think about other containers. What else do you have containers for? I have, my waiting for folder is in a side sealed file folder. I have the courses I take in gusseted folders with individual folders for the modules involved and the worksheets and things when I'm taking courses. I have binders for reference materials, and I have journals in boxes because they came in a box. So all of those things are containers. The envelopes, the files, the boxes. How many containers do you need? I don't need the box around the journal. I just had it because I wanted to show you that you can have a journal in a box because that's how it comes, but you can take it out of the box and just keep it on the shelf as well. And then you are saving the almost 1 inch of extra space all the way around the journal. Look, it doesn't stick out anymore. So that's another consideration to keep in mind as well. I went right into the recycle container. Okay, so think function over style. I like to reuse a lot of things. I have a bunch of tins that I use to store things. I've shown you these before. So I use the tins. They were Christmas candy years ago, and now they hold old pages and stamps on the shelf, so they don't slide around, those smaller day planner pages that I use. So think about that. What are you holding on to? What do you already have that can work as a container? You've all seen my flower pot. This was a flower pot, now my pencil cup. I like to use things in a variety of ways. So keep that in mind. Also, this allows you to think about all the other kinds of considerations that happen as well. If the function is most important, you then need to, before you buy your containers, you need to consider, is it archival? Is it something I need to be able to see? Do I need it to be watertight or critter tight? Do you need to keep the dog food away from bears? There's all kinds of considerations about what container is most appropriate for your situation. Do you need it to be easy access so your kids can get into it or your elderly relatives get into it? Or do you need to consider how heavy the actual container is? There's some of those wooden boxes that are heavier than wicker baskets, and if you struggle with weight or have upper body mobility issues and things, you might want to go with the wicker or the canvas because it's lighter than the wood. And then does it fit on an actual shelf? And give your hands enough room to get in to pull the thing off the shelf when you need it. All of these things are really important to think through. And I have binders for my reference material, but not for the stuff I file regularly. So a binder for me is only for the stuff I kind of need to flip to the page and read it and then put the whole thing away. When it's something that has a lot of moving parts and I need to get in and out of or grab just portions of a lot, I don't put it in a binder because I am not the kind of person that will open the binder every time. I can set one up as a book and use it as a book, but not for storage. So that's why I use those accordion folders or those gusseted folders with other file folders within them, because I can just grab the part I need without opening the mechanism. So think about that as well. How much effort are you willing to put in? Buying a bunch of beautiful containers that you're not willing to pull the 2 boxes off the shelf, take the top one off, take the lid off the bottom one, put the thing back in the bottom one, put the lid back on, pick the other box on top, and then put them both back on the shelf. That's a lot of steps. Would you rather just set something back on a shelf or reach into something without a lid and drop it in? That's the kind of thing you want to be thinking about before you pick out the actual container. Then style just sometimes takes a while. Sometimes you have a vision in mind and you go to the store and they're sold out, or they've changed the colors for the season, or they don't have the right material because it's the wrong time of year, or you want to buy some storage bins and all they have is red and green because it's almost Christmas, or they only have clear and translucent things because it's summer. You know, there's some time that has to linger sometimes between knowing what kind of container you want and finding the one that's exactly right. And you can make do with other things. You know, sometimes I have clients, before we go buy the archival photo boxes, we just cut the tops off of brown paper grocery bags, and we use just the bottom portions like little boxes as we're doing the sorting and stuff, because they can be kind of folded in on top of each other and stacked like boxes would be, but we haven't found the box yet. So think about that as well. What can you do in the meantime? Is there some sort of bag or temporary box until you find just the exact right thing? That's when the shopping and the sourcing can be fun. Now you can go look at thrift stores, antique stores, new stores, high-end stores, low-end stores. You can take a look what's going to be the exact right thing and have a little bit of fun about pulling your style into your order and your organization. And hopefully it becomes a system that you enjoy using because you've put beautiful things around the stuff you use. Okay, don't forget, a few more freebies over at MoreThanOrganized.net. And thank you for sticking with this series on the steps to order. See you next time.